Welcome to our podcast, Let's See What Happens. And this podcast features two women with ADHD, and we talk about our life choices, maybe shed some light on life with ADHD, perhaps inspire. Probably not, though. Okay. What would you say you knew here?
Hi, Natalie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really great. Yeah, it's a great day. It's a great day to have a great day. Someone said that to me in an elevator, and I was like, wow, I don't disagree with you, but also I feel like we lead really different lives.
So you're using great a lot.
Yeah. Can I introduce you to a thesaurus?
I was about to say that.
I happen to have one right here.
Keys? Nope. Thesaurus? Check.
Nailed it.
This once in a lifetime encounter. I do have a tool for that.
Yeah. I'm also really strong because I've been carrying around a thesaurus for 40 years. My whole life. Okay, well, I'm really excited to chat about our topic for today. I think it's a really important topic for all people, but especially folks with ADHD. We're going to talk about mental health today.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, obviously, we know as a society that generally a lot of people struggle with mental health. I think when you have a thing, I'm just going to call it a thing, like ADHD, I feel like people are generally a little bit more susceptible to having mental health issues. My theory is a lot of it is the society that we live in with the systems and not being able to fit in. And part of what happens as we grow up, we don't fit into the system. So we start to feel bad about ourselves. Our confidence is impacted. And then you are not given, especially maybe for us growing up in like the 80s, the tools to be like, hey, like you're good, your brain is good. Let's just divert you over here so that you can use your tools and stay in your zone of genius and still develop that sense of I'm good as I am instead of being like, I'm not good, which ultimately is kind of like, I'm not safe. I can't be around other people. I'm different. And that, I think, can fester over years and years and years. And then you have adults who are like, oh shit, like I actually can't do this and I don't feel good about myself. And there's not one person in my life growing up who is like, hey, it's cool that you lose every single thing in your life. Here's where you are really great. And we have these systems for you instead of internalizing that as I lose things, therefore I am not a good person or I can't.
Totally. Yeah. Or I like have a lack of intrinsic self-worth. Yeah, totally. And I think that does get exacerbated as we get older. And I think there's a lot of different ways to go about life, but I think many people end up in careers that allow them to express parts of their zone of genius, but those careers also require them to interact with things that might be outside of that zone of genius, like a calendar or a clock or, I don't know, keys that you can't find, driving places, remembering things. Yeah, and so I agree. I think your point is well made. And I want to be clear, like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I have no ability to actually diagnose people, but I've consumed a lot of therapy. And on the receiving end of that, I think uncovering this idea that there's like a lack of just intrinsic, I'm okay the way I am, turns out that really bleeds into a lot of areas of your life. And I had an experience a couple of weeks ago that was really jarring. And so we wanted to take a minute to talk about it as a way to hopefully let other people know, hey, if this thing is happening to you, you are okay and you're not alone. And this is a thing that I think a lot of people deal with and struggle with. Before we dive in, is there anything else, Natalie, that you wanted to add?
I think that one thing I'd like to add, which is interesting, is looking back on my life growing up in the 80s, undiagnosed ADHD until I did something about it and constantly feeling like losing things was bad, especially as a girl growing up and trying to people please and be a certain way where like I was voted class clown. So like I was a huge tomboy. I don't fit into that little girl sit still profile. So having that and then having all these other things where I just like really couldn't keep my shit together without a lot of support and having people not understand and taking it as you don't care. Like that, assuming I don't care, I'm not trying, and I just sort of go through life aloof. That was my entire childhood experience.
Yeah.
Up to a point where I was finally like able to do really some more emotional work and be my full self and then be like, you know what? I can't be in a job because I just can't. I can't even fill in a timesheet correctly. Literally cannot do it. I don't like it. It's not where my zone of genius lies. And creating or deciding to create a life that really only follows my zone of genius. And
Yeah.
I understand that that's a lot easier said than done. This is like years and years. But
Mhm.
I think if you don't have the ability to stop and realize that you're okay as yourself and
Mhm.
dive into that, you're in this box that really doesn't fit with all of these demands that don't fit. And then you can end up in a situation where you have something more extreme happen to you and you're like, what in the actual fuck is going on here?
Totally. So I turned 40 this year, and there is, I think, something around the shift in hormones, the change in that, that has really thrown a lot of the ADHD symptoms into overdrive. And there's some that are a little easier, there's some that are harder. And so I just want to acknowledge that as well, that it's not something that is this straight line continuum where, oh, if you just put in the work and identify it or get diagnosed or have a great therapist, then you're going to, quote, get better. Because I think that continues to perpetuate this idea that there's something broken or wrong with you. But it is an evolving and changing kind of squiggly line continuum that you get to interact with throughout your whole life. And it's normal that it might change and shift and evolve over time. Yeah.
Hormones are a total bitch. I feel you on that. And that's also something that we should talk about because having ADHD and then going through like perimenopause is just like fucking mind blowing.
Mind blowing. Yeah, mind blowing. So let's dive in. I think one of the things that, as like a high functioning person, it is very easy to create systems and processes and figure out a way to exist in the world. And that can normalize, right? It can become really normal for you to be putting in all of this effort over time. And it's sort of like if you're holding a glass for a minute, it's very easy. It's a glass, not heavy. You can hold it for a minute. But if you try to hold that thing for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour or a full day, just holding your arm up, holding a glass, that weight gets really heavy. And I think sometimes what can happen is you're moving through life and it's taking extra effort, extra effort, extra effort. And finally that effort gets too much. So in the context of my life, I have a job, and in my job, there's a lot of systems and processes in place to help me function because I love what I do, but it fits into a construct that is not friendly to an ADHD brain. I also, as a way to exist in this world in a way that makes sense to me, I run these really long ultra marathons, which is really great because it's a time when I can just like go out and run and do the thing. And I also like to learn. So I'm pursuing an advanced degree. So I'm taking classes for that. And wow, school is a real thing if you have an ADHD brain. But I really like learning. So it's really fun. So I have all these like big time demands. I also exist in a partnership with another human and want to spend time with him. And I have friends and want to spend time with them. So there's all these big demands on my time. And we live in an environment where time is linear. We only have 24 hours in every day. And you got to do things like sleep and eat and pee. So my calendar is sort of maxed out right now, right? Like every minute is pretty full, which I think is a real tough thing for an ADHD brain. And so one morning I'm out on a run and I've been working with this coach, and the run that was prescribed for me that day was a track workout. And when I got up that day, I woke up and I was really excited because I had a little bit of a more ADHD friendly day. I had the day off of work. All I had to do was do this big run and then get a boat ready to go on a river trip and then depart on that river trip. And I was really excited. There's a lot of things that have to happen, but I was really excited for the day. And as I got up and getting ready for the run, all of a sudden I was overwhelmed by this feeling of nausea, and my heart was racing. I couldn't really figure out what was going on. There was like all of the chemicals. I could feel the chemicals in my brain of anxiety and stress and panic kind of flooding out. And I was like, well, this is weird. I've just awakened. I'm sure a run will fix this. So I keep getting ready for the run. And to make a very long story, only marginally shorter, as I'm running, this keeps happening. These waves of unbelievably intense anxiety and stress and cortisol, to the point where I'd be running and I'd have to sit down. I went and tried to do this track workout that I was supposed to do, where you're like running around a track and doing these sprints. And I got about 2 or 3 in, and finally I started one, and another one of these waves hit. I almost threw up, which was really intense. And I finally was like, I just have to stop. I can't do this anymore. We live near a little creek, so I took myself down to the creek. I was just sitting in the cold water trying to like regulate, which was somewhat helpful. You know, warm sun on the face, cold water in the creek. But I'd never had an experience like this happen. And I think one of the most interesting things about it was as these waves would come and there was a very physical experience to it, it was like my brain was throwing up this like Rolodex of snapshots of memories, many of which were extremely neutral. I would have a memory of getting an email. The email was benign. It's not like it was an aggressive or difficult email. And suddenly there would be this incredible attachment of panic and stress and anxiety and vomit feelings to that email. Or I'd have a memory of talking with a friend, same thing. Getting a text message, same thing. So really benign stuff. And it was really interesting to me that my brain really felt like it was just on overdrive. Like someone had taken an old school Rolodex and just spun it and it couldn't stop. And I think one of the real benefits and gifts of spending a lot of time in therapy and trying to figure out my own brain and going down a journey of trying to learn about myself was I was able to keep an attitude of a little bit of compassion and curiosity in that moment. So even though it was physically extremely intense and mentally really challenging and emotionally pretty awful, when you say it like that, it really doesn't sound great. But I do think that having that attitude of a little bit of curiosity and an awareness to say, wow, this is something really intense is happening. And the need to explore it and understand what's going on maybe later is a real gift, because clearly something's going on that is big enough that my brain and body are throwing up a lot of signals to be like, bitch, you got to stop. Maybe don't go on this run. Maybe go sit by the creek.
You know what I think is interesting too? It's ADHD brain, right? So it's a lot of forgetfulness, like this idea of object permanence. You have to have it in front of you to be able to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of time spent and brain energy spent to continually think about the things that aren't in front of you. So if you have a job, like that email you have to get to, like that is not necessarily intrinsically an easy task for anybody, but I do believe it's easier for some people who don't have maybe this type of brain. So your cortex is really supposed to be for thinking and talking and doing fun things, whereas everything else is subconscious, and 80% of what your brain processes is actually subconscious. But if you have these experiences and they're even slightly stressful, you could be, as your baseline, like how you exist in this slightly fight or flight response. So, which is another term for that is dysregulated. The reason why I'm saying this is because I am an occupational therapist and I work with kids who have things like ADHD. I feel like a lot of it comes from childhood because that's where you develop almost like all of your behaviors and like how you exist and how you believe you are as a human. You're always in this fight or flight mode. You get used to it. So that's your baseline. And a lot of the kids that I work with do not know how to relax. Coming down and just being still is really, really difficult. So you're in this existence where you're like, I am relaxed, but you're still, like you were talking about kind of the chemicals in your brain, how you're processing through your brainstem is sending you into this slight fight or flight. It's a spectrum. And you have to kind of keep all these things together, which are more stress for you than perhaps other people. So it's just like you're more prone to stress anyway. And then from there, it's like almost every little thing could kind of set you off. I'm a huge proponent of being able to feel your feelings, which is how I feel like I've not necessarily avoided this, but kept a clean mental health bill for the most part, is to be able to see, okay, that's really stressful for me. I'm either not going to do it, I'm going to employ someone to do it, or I'm going to get rip shit mad for about 5 minutes and like really feel it until I can feel that it's out and then come up with a solution. And I think as women, like as kids, girls growing up especially, it's like you're not necessarily supposed to or allowed to show your emotions. And so you have all these like suppressed emotions. That email wasn't stressful, but your body and your brain perceived it as stressful. Right? Like, and it is kind of stressful.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be like all these little things that your brain's like constantly like, Jesus, oh my God. Okay. All right.
Yep.
You know?
Totally.
And like,
Yeah.
You're like a super happy, super fun human.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that is a really important point counterpoint, right? Because I normally go through life in this like very enthusiastic, very positive manner, like high energy. And I think you're right. I think that tiny extra mental load that someone without ADHD might say like, oh, I have an email. I have confidence that I can get back to that. And I know that it's going to get completed. Whereas my brain is like, okay, this is a little bit of alarm. There's a thing that you need to get completed. And whether it's because throughout childhood or life or adulthood, right? We're told like, wow, you can't handle that, right? Or that's too much for you. It does. It creates this little bit of extra stress saying like, ooh, this is a danger, right? If you don't deal with this in a timely fashion, you're going to,
and
you'll forget about it.
That's like a fight or flight. That's like an alarm, like hard stop. I got an
Yep.
email. If I don't do it right now, like I probably won't do it.
Yep. Yeah. And then there'll be a negative consequence, right? You'll get excommunicated from the group, or right? Something in your brain is saying, this is really problematic. Yeah. So after this was happening, I reached out for some help. So I see a therapist, and I reached out to her and kind of explained what was going on. And she let me know that this is what most people would call a panic attack, which I, in retrospect, realized had happened before. Not quite to this extreme, like I'm about to throw up situation, but that same like wave of what felt like, it felt like a wave of chemicals like going through my brain and going through my body had happened before to a slightly lesser degree. And so I think my hope with sharing this is if someone had told me like, hey, this is what a panic attack could feel like, because I think I had this image in my mind that it looked one way and maybe felt one way. But I think if someone had told me like, hey, this is a real thing that's really happening to you and it is a big deal, and it's normal to then feel exhausted. It's normal to then need to rest and recover and eat nutritious foods. And it is okay to do those things, right? It's okay to regulate. And it's okay to rest. And it's okay to care for yourself, and that there's nothing intrinsically wrong with you because that happened. I think it would have been really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. And also just your body's always talking to you.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily something we're taught either.
Totally. Yeah. And that like signal of saying like, hey, yeah, we need to feel this feeling. We need to move it through, and then get shit mad about the email and either go and do it or decide we're not going to do it and put that down, I think is really important.
Yeah. And it also teaches you to trust yourself. Okay, what is the solution here? Because there's always a solution, and being able to come up with your own solution. It's a lot about just trusting yourself, I think, instead of having somebody as you're growing up being exactly what you said. You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't do this. How am I going to function as an adult if I always have someone being like, you can't do that?
Yeah, totally. You're never going to make it. Yeah. Hearing that you're never going to make it without the like backside of that of like, but here are some tools or systems, or here's how we can collaborate to help you figure out how you can thrive just as you are, not in spite of yourself, but because of yourself.
Well, I'm glad you're okay, buddy.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for all the tips and tricks. And also apparently that stuff happens to more people than just you or just me, right? It's not like an alone experience. This is a thing that lots of folks have dealt with.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. Hope it was helpful.
You're doing great.
Appreciate you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.